As Mark said, I'm here presenting OntoloBridge, which is partially why we tried to get this symposium together. And this came about sort of through the group as we were working on the bioassay ontology and some of the issues that we developed while actually updating the ontology. So to get into that, I'd like to start, with me as a maintainer of the bioassay ontology. And one of the issues that kept coming up is, so we have users that would come and submit new ideas for either assays or methods or something that they're seeing missing in the ontology. And so the ideal world is that they have this term that they would like to request. They would find your contact information, package it up into an email, and send it off to you, and you would be able to easily expand upon their idea and add it to the ontology and then email them back, and everything's nice and easy. Unfortunately, one of the things that was noticed is as we were overviewing other ontologies, especially as we're trying to look for other ontologies that we might need to import terms for BAL, as we're updating this from user request terms to see if the terms already exist in other ontologies or if there's something entirely new we need to create, is that not all of the ontologies, so certainly on BioPortal, but overall in the world, don't have contact information that's easily available for particular maintainers. And if it does, it may not be regularly checked. While there are some larger ontologies that certainly have whole teams working on them, some of the ontologies may be the work of smaller groups that have significantly or a significant amount of other responsibilities that they're actually performing. So communication may be weak. On top of this, the actual processes for submitting to ontologies can be wide and varied. Some obviously you submit via email, some have their own websites, some you submit through GitHub. So we noticed that there was a problem in the communication between the users who may not be regular ontology users or even know the ontology information, and the maintainers who obviously work in this day to day. Another issue popped up, especially as we're working with CDD, is that the term may not actually come directly from the user. They may submit the term to a technologist who will take a fair amount of terms and then submit them to the maintainers as well. And then you have sort of a game of telephone where the original requested idea may not be easily translatable, and then you may have questions for the technologist and you'll get a reply of, I'm not really sure what this is, I'll have to contact somebody else. So with all of this in mind, the idea was we should certainly work on the communication aspect of this. And so we developed this idea of OntoloBridge. So the idea behind this is that you either are viewing, annotating, using BAL directly, or possibly you're using it through an external service such as BioHarmony or maybe BioPortal, and you have this idea and you want to submit a term. So the idea here is that there is an API that can be contacted for these new terms, and then we'll forward them to the ontology maintainers directly. We have worked with both BioHarmony at CDD and with BioPortal to implement the APIs on their side as well, so that this can happen, but it's an open format API. The term is submitted via JSON. It's then processed by the backend. And depending on sort of how the ontology maintainers would like to be contacted, it'll either then send an email to the maintaining team or possibly submit a request on GitHub, although that feature is still being worked on. The maintainers then notified can then either view it directly from whatever submission mechanism, either GitHub or email, or go onto the OntoloBridge website and view what the request was made, and then can communicate back and forth with the user, either via email directly on the OntoloBridge website, outright reject it and say this isn't particularly right for the ontology, maybe offer them another ontology to look at, or it can accept it. Now, in this case, I have OntoloGIES, which is a tool developed at the University of Miami specifically to update the bioassay ontology and drug target ontology, but obviously there are other tools that are used by different ontologies. And so the idea here is that you would be able to download whatever you particularly need to update it with your own ontology. And then the OntoloBridge can then, after you've accepted it, inform the users that you have accepted the term and what has changed if they need to do anything on their end. So the important points of this is that there is a RESTful API for you to submit new terms, and it is functional either through a main web page or through just APIs. We can have email notifications to all parties, so the users can actually request that they get notified if any changes happen automatically, other than waiting for a request from the actual maintainers. And another big thing that we added that was requested by certainly some in industry is that there's an anonymous submission mechanism. So we've developed a system in OntoloBridge so that you can register with an email address, and then it will develop an OntoloBridge email address specifically for you that will forward to your original email address, so that none of the maintainers or developers of OntoloBridge will actually know what your particular email address is, allowing you to submit terms and not necessarily reveal who they came from, however, still allowing the maintainers to communicate to you through OntoloBridge, as it will email your forwarded email address to let you know there's changes that need to be made, and allow you to do them on the website. We can then export this via CSV, which seems to be a popular method. And so we have the internal messaging system. And the idea behind all of this is that it will allow for quicker iteration between ontology users and ontology maintainers and actual release of updated information. The RESTful API is as such, so we have multiple different types of particular properties you can request, or terms you can request. And then you can also see the status of current terms, so you can, using your own programs that you develop, your own applications, see the status of whatever terms have been requested. And then you can see what ontologies currently are accepted by OntoloBridge. The idea is that we will hopefully accept more over time, but it is currently a curated list that I will get to in a little bit. And you can also retrieve all the requests for particular ontologies. So you can actually query this to see if anything's happening to an ontology you're interested in. As far as submission goes, there's a main endpoint for submission, and sort of it varies per type. Right now, this is the fields we've decided. However, the idea is that custom forms per ontology will be coming soon, as obviously every ontology has different requirements for what they need submitted. As far as on the actual standalone website, we have a submission flow to allow you to submit new terms one at a time. You start typing into a search box to find an ontology. This is powered in part by BioPortal, where we have ontologies that we have whitelisted, but then we contact BioPortal to check if the ontology is still valid. Then we use the BioPortal tree widget to allow you to select a specific superclass that you would like this particular term to be under, and give you a pop-up warning to make sure you've selected what the one you think you need. And then we have the terms form as if it was on the API, hopefully allowing users who are not particularly familiar with either APIs or ontologies to more easily submit changes to the ontologies. As a maintainer, you get this nice view that allows you to sort current requests and see sort of what's going on. So this is specifically for the bioassay ontology, as I have set up on the website right now. You can see the email if they've if they have shared this information, as well as the current status and when it was submitted. So currently, there is a few ontologies using OntoloBridge, and we're just now getting to sort of an open beta status. So hopefully we'll add more as time goes on. But obviously we have bioassay ontology and drug target ontology, as I currently maintain both of those. Also at the current time, we have cell line ontology and the corona infectious disease ontology, which are both sort of maintained by Oliver He. And then we have the protein ontology. Currently, all of these are supported, although we are, as I said, still working out kinks. As I said earlier, we have integration with BioPortal. We worked with the BioPortal team to have this new term request form on supported ontologies that allow you to submit ontologies directly from their webpage, and it goes to us. You can request to be notified as well whenever changes happen, although I'm not entirely the specifics of how it works on the bioportal side. And so one of the important parts of this is you can actually make requests while viewing the ontology on their website. And hopefully we have fields set up so that you can see what's been requested of the ontology. Finally, I would like to show you an example of a quick turnaround for the ontology. So this was requested, as you can see, the 25th day of June, sort of as an example of a quick turnaround time with our collaborators at CDD. This is specifically the Illumina instrument, and it was accepted on 7/7 after just a few bugs that needed to be worked on the actual development side of OntoloBridge, and the next day it was actually released on Bioportal. So hopefully we're hoping to continue this forward with significantly more terms and obviously more ontologies. I'd like to thank everybody that has helped me with this, definitely at CDD, specifically at least Samantha, who has been really good at both organizing this conference, but also organizing a lot of the term updates that we've had to do for bioassay ontology. Also the work at Stanford's, especially on Bioportal, but also with the help on OntoloBridge and sort of as we've been going forward. Obviously my lab here at the University of Miami. While not currently working with us, previously Julie Davies, who was also helping with Bioportal, or bioassay ontology, but also OntoloBridge. And I'll take some questions now from the chat.
Fortunately, John, it looks like Stefan has answered most of your chat questions for you, which is really very sweet of him.
I will answer the one from Lynn about can the term request link to your GitHub tracker? That is the hope. I haven't finished putting that in yet. We've been mostly working with bioassay ontology and drug target ontology as we're getting it to this beta state. But there is code in the back end to do that. I just haven't had an ontology to test that with yet. So maybe I can get with you over email after this and try and get this set up.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Pro also uses GitHub.
Yes, I need to actually add pros as well. Samantha asked, does OntoloBridge provide a provisional ID to use while we're waiting for term request? Yes, there is a pseudo sort of ID that it generates with an ONTB prefix. The idea is that you can use that until the term's accepted, and then the API will actually signify that the term's been accepted and what the new term ID is, but the old term ID will stay valid specifically for the life of OntoloBridge, which hopefully is a very long time.
John, do you want to talk about the situation where a user requests a term where the term request may be reasonable, but the actual solution suggested by the user doesn't make sense in the context of the ontology?
Yes, so we've had a couple of those already. Obviously, it's up to each ontology maintainer as to how they want to handle that. Specifically for bioassay ontology, the idea is that we will try and communicate with the user to figure out what exactly they need, because it may not always be obvious. And then one of the things we've done sometimes is implement multiple terms to sort of encompass everything they need, because they may submit a unit and they're like, I need this particular unit, and then we'll look at that and go, yes, you need that unit, but these other units that are also related are probably going to be very helpful to you.
John, can you quickly comment on Nico's question about reusing it in another stack, and can some other folks maintain it themselves if they wanted to and just reuse the code?
It is all open source and on GitHub, so theoretically you could definitely use it in a different stack. I'm not particularly familiar with OLS, but OntoloBridge is built with Java, specifically Spring Boot framework. And I'm working more on the documentation of it, but it should be relatively easy to integrate, especially with it. It uses JWT tokens or application passwords for communication and authentication, and then a standard RESTful API.